Pastor Brenda, and this is about humble leadership in the system of power over. We talk a lot here in this church about power, about the power over, and many of you are watching this and you've been the victim of some power over situations. It happens in churches too. We talk a lot here about power under and how Jesus used his power in an under way to create a movement that changed the world. This one's about humble leadership, and we're going to use the story of Moses. Now, this may be a story that you know, but we're going to do our way and have some great conversations about this really rich story. But I want to begin, first, please hit like or subscribe to our channel so we get to see you again. So I want to begin with how Moses was remembered. It was recorded at the end of his life in Numbers 12:3. It says, "Now Moses was very humble, more humble than any other person on earth." And then at his death, one of the scribes recorded about Moses in Deuteronomy 34:10-12, "There's never been another prophet in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. The Lord sent him to perform all the miraculous signs and wonders in the land of Egypt against Pharaoh and all his servants and his entire land. With mighty power, Moses performed terrifying acts in the sight of all Israel." This is the story of a hero. You'll see a hero's journey throughout the part of Moses' life we're going to talk about the next few weeks here. The hero's journey is a popular movie plot, story plot, novel plot. It's a good plot. We respond to it because we also want to be on a hero's journey. We want our lives to matter. We want this broken life we have to amount to something, right? So we really resonate with this hero's journey, and Moses' story is rich in it. And this is also someone whom the Lord knew face to face. What an interesting friendship. We talk a lot here in the church about the science of joy, and part of the science of joy is your right brain reads faster than your left brain, and your right brain reads faces first. So you can walk into a room, scan the faces, and either feel joy, you feel anxiety, fear, comeuppance, whatever those faces your brain is reading you read the room, and that's how your brain will then react. So joy is very important to faces. And so when it says here of Moses that the Lord knew him face to face, there was joy in that. There was a depth of relationship in that. You know that face that you see that makes you warm, smile, gives you confidence. Yes, God and Moses had that kind of a relationship, and that's just pretty awesome. And we will learn that Moses didn't earn this reputation by keeping his faith shallow. And I hope you felt the holy tension in that statement, because we're going to really dig into that. But Moses didn't earn this reputation by keeping his faith shallow. So how did Moses become this humble leader? Well, he left Pharaoh and the privilege of the palace because something was stirring inside his soul. Then he went to the desert. He had a desert experience for 40 years. He was about age 40 when he left Pharaoh in the palace. Another 40 years in the desert. So about age 80, he was able to lead. Before we start making any assumptions here, I want to ask you a first question. Can young people lead? If it took Moses 80 years to lead, can our young people today lead? Hope you're meeting with your roommates or your family or your small group and have that conversation. I'll be back. I want to say very emphatically that we at this church believe young people can lead, and we're looking continually to turn leadership over to our young people. Understand, we have an 89-year-old in our church. He's got a lot of wisdom to offer, but I don't want him to lead. I want him to offer his wisdom. We have people of all ages. We're very intergenerational, and I want them all to lead, but I really want our young people to lead. I really believe in it. you may not have all the wisdom in the world yet. We'll give it to you so you can have the opportunity to learn and do this without maybe having a desert experience. I don't know. We just want you to lead. We believe in young people in this church. Make that loud and clear. All right, so back to the story of Moses. When Moses murdered someone because of this righteous stirring up inside of him, he was using his power over to get justice. He was coming from, I'm from the palace. I am going to make this right by using my power. Ended up being, murdering someone, scandal. He had to flee for his life out of there, and he went out into the desert. This desert experience made him a nobody after palace living. And this shaped him for his long and heroic life. Jesus also left the halls of power to become poor, to save the world. Do you see a pattern here? So let's begin reading out of Exodus 1, Exodus 1:1, and get some of the backstory of what's going on here. These are the names of the sons of Israel, that is Jacob, who moved to Egypt with their father, each with his family. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. In all, Jacob had 70 descendants in Egypt, including Joseph, who was already there. In time, Joseph and all of his brothers died, ending that entire generation. But their descendants, the Israelites, had many children and grandchildren. In fact, they multiplied so greatly that they became extremely powerful and filled the land. Eventually, a new king came to power in Egypt who knew nothing about Joseph or what he had done. He said to his people, "Look, the people of Israel now outnumber us and are stronger than we are. We must make a plan to keep them from growing even more. If we don't, and if war breaks out, they will join our enemies and fight against us. Then they will escape from the country." So the Egyptians made the Israelites their slaves. They appointed brutal slave drivers over them, hoping to wear them down with crushing labor. They forced them to build the cities of Pithom and Ramses as supply centers for the king. But the more the Egyptians oppressed them, the more the Israelites multiplied and spread, and the more alarmed the Egyptians became. So the Egyptians worked the people of Israel without mercy. They made their lives bitter, forcing them to mix mortar and make bricks and do all the work in the fields. They were ruthless in all their demands. Into this blighted world, Moses was born. Notice the dehumanizing that is going on here. This whole race is just dehumanized. Notice the power over and the fear leading to the power over. Notice that. And notice the repeat of history. There is a reason why Exodus is so much part of our liberation theology. There's a reason also, some theologians like to say that Exodus was the first book of the Bible, because it is the story of liberation and freedom and God's hand in delivering his people. And then Genesis with the creation story and being, breathed into by God and created in his image. The Genesis story is we've been freed, now God is telling us who we are. So this story in Exodus is rich in our history, is rich in truth for all of us to live by. Now the backstory continues with the birth of the soon-to-be 80-year-old hero. I want you to notice the women in this part of the story. So we're going to pick up in verse 15. Then Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, gave this order to the Hebrew midwives, Shiphrah and Puah. When you help the Hebrew women as they give birth, watch as they deliver. If the baby is a boy, kill him. If it is a girl, let her live. But because the midwives feared God, they refused to obey the king's orders. They allowed the boys to live too. So the king of Egypt called for the midwives. "Why have you done this?" he demanded. "Why have you allowed the boys to live?" "The Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women," the midwives replied. "They are more vigorous and have their babies so quickly that we cannot get there in time." So God was good to the midwives, and the Israelites continued to multiply, growing more and more powerful. And because the midwives feared God, he gave them families of their own. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people: "Throw every newborn Hebrew boy into the Nile River, but you may let the girls live." I want you to notice in this part of the story that the Pharaoh here is not named, but the two midwives are named, Shiphrah and Puah. This is so interesting because actually in history, in theology, whatever, we don't know which Pharaoh this was. It's kind of unrecorded. This Pharaoh's son is the one who let the Israelites go, crossed the Red Sea, the waves came down and destroyed the whole army. So that son is quite the loser, and this is the father of the son, and history doesn't quite record the losers, does it? Just a little interesting fact there. But these two midwives, common women, these midwives get named and remembered because of what they did. Isn't that amazing? Because of these women's no, Moses is born. These women had to have some kind of rumbling of freedom in them to figure out a way to circumvent the evil. Notice the similarity to the massacre of Bethlehem that Jesus had to endure. Notice the repeat of history again. And then just think, who visited Jesus at the Transfiguration? It was Moses and Elijah. Do you think Jesus and Moses had something to talk about now that Jesus was here on earth? And there are some things that they could share with each other? So, question I want you to have with your group. How does one maintain hope like what the midwives showed with so much power over them? They're in this power over system. How did the midwives retain this hope to know that they could do this and get away with it? How does one become brave like that? Have that conversation. And then last question. Did you notice that the two midwives lied? They straight up lied to the Pharaoh. Now they did it for the good of the Hebrew people. So, have this question with your people. When is it okay to lie? Now that is a rich conversation, right? Because here it's right there in the Bible of a lie that was good. But there are lies that hurt, there are lies that destroy, and there are lies that save lives. Older, wiser us are learning when this is okay. And doesn't that make you twingy? But for the younger of us, ooh, boy, this is something to learn, and it's hard, and discernment, wisdom from us. But you see it? You feel that holy tension? Okay, I want you to. Now, I'm not done with the women in the story who have hope and defy the power authority to create the possibility of a hero. We're going to have to wait for that for next week. So this is your benediction for the week. This is done the summer of 2024. There's a lot of power over happening right now. How are we going to find hope when there's dehumanizing, othering of people that breaks my heart? How will you find hope this week to maybe bring hope to somebody else? I'll see you again.